Lance Zierlein works with NFL.com. They're draft analyst, co-host of The Bench in Houston. And Lance, kind enough to join us. Good morning, Lance. How are you?
Doing good. How you doing, Dan?
I'm doing great. I watched with great interest the mock draft when it was revealed. Now, can you tell me if you think the Bengals should trade the pick or will trade the pick, the number one overall pick?
Well, I don't think they will trade the pick. I think the should is always going to be cased in. I have to know what the package would look like. See, here's the problem. In my mock draft, a lot of times my first two mock drafts, I like to create some contingency plans because drafts rarely go the way people think. People get so upset about mock drafts, and they're just an ability to work through, at least for me, to work through some different scenarios. And so I decided, so Zach Taylor was the coach, the head coach of the Bengals, was the coach of Justin Herbert at the Senior Bowl. So he had an opportunity to spend some time with them. You've had some rumblings about Joe Burrow maybe not wanting to be a Bengal. And so I decided and Miami has all the draft capital in the world. So I decided to go with Miami trading up to 1, and let's explore that and see what happens to the rest of the draft board. Now, Miami has plenty to make this draft happen. What it would look like to trade, that's kind of irrelevant to me because there is enough over the next 2 years draft capital-wise to make this happen. Would I do it? I can tell you this. I think Joe Burrow is a lot better than Justin Herbert. I think Joe Burrow is better than Tua Tagovailoa. Do I think Joe Burrow is a generational quarterback? I do not think he's a generational quarterback. I don't throw that term around lightly. Drew Brees is generational. We happen to be lucky enough to have Tom. I think Drew's generational, but he's not even the best quarterback in this generation. He might be third behind Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. So I don't think Joe Burrow is generational. With that said, you really need a quarterback, but the Bengals are not a quarterback away. So if there was a package, Dan, that was strong enough, I would absolutely listen. Now, it would have to be a very strong package for me to be willing to move out of Joe Burrow, but I would absolutely listen. I think you're foolish if you just say we're going to lock in on one guy unless you really do believe that he is that special quarterback, and maybe that's what Cincinnati believes.
Where are your doubts with Joe Burrow?
Well, so my doubts, and I know what they are. I watched him in the summer. I watched Joe Burrow. I thought he looked like a sixth rounder. I watched all the quarterbacks, and I just put him away, put him to bed. And I went to the game that they played University of Texas, and I was like, whoa, this is a little different Joe Burrow than I remember seeing. From an accuracy standpoint, he was more accurate. His placement was better. And as the season wore on, I continued to have that same mindset of, we'll see the real Joe Burrow pop up soon, and it never happened. And about halfway through, I started buying into what my eyes were telling me. And as I got into the tape and really studied the tape, it's really quite simple. Joe Brady, I think the move of Justin Jefferson from the outside receiver spot to slot number 1 was huge. Jamar Chase becoming a big-time prospect on the outside was huge. But maybe more importantly, Joe Brady, the passing game coordinator, he basically helped to craft an offense that didn't ask Joe Burrow to throw a ton of throws outside the numbers, and especially field side, which is the long side of the field. Mm-hmm. That was something that was really wide open in 2018, like wide open in terms of their game plan. Joe Burrow was asked to throw a bunch of those throws, and he struggled, and that was not something that he did well. So I isolated every throw he made, intermediate, from 10 to 20 yards, outside the numbers, every one of them. And this year he was 21 of 43. That's less than 50%, 5 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. So I went and looked at all 43 of those throws. I wanted to see what all of them looked like. And Joe throws with incredible timing and accuracy. But those are very, very tight windows when you don't have a big arm. And I think he has a slightly below average arm by NFL standards. And when he threw field side, which is across the field, those same throws, you could see the nose of the ball tail down. It was an even harder throw. So I think managing those throws, Dan, staying away from those throws is going to be the key. I don't think it's something that will sink him as a prospect, but I watched all the throws from last year and all the throws from this year. This is the throw that he struggles with, the intermediate ball outside the numbers that requires either exquisite placement and timing or a big arm. You've got to have one or the other. He's got one of them, which is why he can survive. but you don't want to make a living if you're Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. You don't want to make a living of having to throw that throw.
Given the circumstances, the situation in the United States of just travel, does this help or hurt Tua Tagovailoa?
I think it hurts him. Teams want to have their own medical staffs be able to do whatever needs to be done. That's why every medical staff goes to the combine, and then there's a second combine done or for medical rechecks. Teams want their own doctors to tell them, okay, is there a long-term stability issue with Tua Tagovailoa? Well, give us an idea if there's future durability or degenerative condition. And so I think that's where Tua is hurt. I saw the video. He looks great moving around and sliding around. I think teams would love to be able to put him through the paces with certain turns and certain movements just to double check. And I think more importantly, they would really love to get their medical staffs to have their own staff's own opinion on his particular injury/recovery. So I would typically say that would hurt him. I'm still going to assume he's going third and that Detroit will trade out of the third pick and somebody else will move into that spot. That's what I'm working off of. But I also don't have access to the medicals. Teams are going to have to feel really good about the medicals to draft him with the third pick.
You know what makes me nervous, though, Lance, is, and we're talking to Lance Zierlein, NFL.com, their draft analyst, is we're seeing a small sample size with some of these high draft picks where you've seen 1 year. Dwayne Haskins was great for 1 year. Kyler Murray for 1 year. Baker Mayfield, well, a little bit more than that. Joe Burrow was great for 1 year. I don't know if Justin Herbert was ever great for 1 year, but consistent. Tua was certainly great for 1.5 years, maybe. Like it used to be, you got a chance to watch a quarterback develop for 2 years, maybe 3 years. And I don't know what Washington has with Dwayne Haskins. I don't even know if Washington knows what they have with him. Mitchell Trubisky. Maybe the Giants struck gold in Daniel Jones, who they could have gotten later in the draft, I feel like. But to try to assess that as a draft analyst, you're not seeing much. So how hard is that to assess who is real and who's not? Like Jordan Love, I watched him last year and I went, wait, what am I supposed to be looking at here? And then somebody said, well, he didn't have talent around him. I'm like, okay. Is he a poor man's Mahomes? Like, okay. Like you just start hearing this stuff and it's hard to really assess how good somebody can be or will be.
Yeah, it is. So you're right about that. And I think with Pat Mahomes, we actually had a little bit more. I had more tape to get around. I made a mistake with Pat Mahomes worrying about the things that he did where he would throw off platform, and he did some Jay Cutler-ish type of stuff, which, Jay at one point was a really good NFL quarterback, but he really defaulted into some bad habits. And I focused too much on that as opposed to the things that he could do and the things that he would be able to be coached on the next level. So he was a big learning. I had him as a second rounder. I learned a lot from where I missed on Mahomes. You have to study where you missed. That's the most important thing. Deshaun Watson, we had tape on Deshaun Watson. So all the nitpicky stuff that we all did on Deshaun Watson, well, guess what? He was a winner. We saw him in high-leverage situations. Mitchell Trubisky, never saw him in those high-leverage situations. Yeah. And he doesn't necessarily rise to the occasion when they occur in the NFL. I think Dwayne Haskins, same issue. You have 1 year wonder. Joe Burrow is in that same situation. You can't tell me, and I had an executive tell me this, Dan. I said, let me tell you, you got to get on board with Burrow. He's a different guy. He's completely different, and he is different this year than last year. And this executive said, Lance, you can't tell me I have to ignore the 18 tape. It's impossible.
I know.
You don't tell somebody in the NFL you have to ignore the previous season. Similarly, you can't tell me only watch 2018 on Jordan Love and ignore 2019. You can't do it. I understand the difficulties that Love faced with all his turnover, but how you play is how you play. And I think the 1 year wonder stuff, I think that is a concern for some NFL teams surrounding especially the quarterback position, because you haven't gone through the different, you haven't experienced the different highs, lows. When did Dwayne Haskins face adversity? In 1 year, you're going to face adversity? Not really. Not like you're going to face in the NFL. Deshaun Watson faced some adversity. So I think that's something that you make a really good point there. Seeing 1 year against especially sometimes lesser competition, what's that telling me? If I've got more tape, I may pick at you more like I do with Tua, but I know what I've got with Tua.
I'll leave you with this. I know Trevor Lawrence is great for next year. Justin Fields, give me another quarterback that we should keep an eye on. I have a bet with McLovin that Trevor Lawrence doesn't go number one overall.
Woo! I mean, did you get odds on that?
No,
just a tough one.
Just a gut feeling. Just a gut feeling.
If he doesn't go one, then it would probably have to be Justin Fields if he came out. And really, those two are the top two that I know. To be just perfectly honest, Dan, right now I'm so locked in on this year, I won't really get to next year's sophomores who will be juniors, if you know what I mean, because that's where the class usually starts, is whoever last year's sophomore class was moving into the junior. I can tell you this in terms of Fields versus, because to me those are the two, Justin Fields versus Trevor Lawrence. Once again, we're going to have 3 years of Lawrence playing at a very high level or in high-level games. And we could have the potential to have elite physical traits combined with elite production in high-level matchups and games. That's going to be hard for Justin Fields to circumnavigate, because no matter what Justin Fields does, I mean, we've seen what Trevor Lawrence can do in the big situations. I don't think he's flawless. People are overplaying that a little bit. Trevor Lawrence has some flaws right now, but it won't be until I really dig into the tape that I can give a real strong analysis of how he reads defenses, makes decisions, things like that. But I would tell you this: I like McLovin's stance there. What's still part of that to me? I'll buy some of that.
All right, thank you, Lance. Great to talk to you, and we appreciate your time.
All right, appreciate it. Thanks, Dan.
That's Lance Zierlein, NFL.com draft analyst, co-host of The Bench in Houston.